This Illustrator tutorial is building off of the colorwork Illustrator tutorial that I did. The links are in the sidebar. So we're going to expand on what we learned for colorwork charts and apply those same skills plus a couple of minor extra ones to do knit and purl and lacework type charts. Everything except for cables at this point. So just like before, I'm going to make sure that my guides and grids are set exactly how I want, so this will be 4 subdivisions per inch or 72 pixels. And I want to make sure that I have snap to grid turned on, so just make sure that's turned on for you. Select your rectangular tool, set the stroke weight that you want, so this is the stroke weight and I want 1/2 point, and then also make sure that the colors you have are correct. You want to make sure, this is a big tip, make sure you have a fill color of some sort, generally white, and a stroke so that you can see your box. I'll draw one box that's going to snap right to 1 grid increment because I have the snap to grid turned on, and that will be our basic knit stitch. It's also going to be the box that I duplicate to make other shapes. I'm going to go back into view, turn off snap to grid for now while we build our shapes. I'll duplicate this box, and now I'll make a purl stitch. So for the purl stitch, I'm going to do a dot, and for that I'll use the ellipse tool. You can also click the letter L. I'll go down to my fill, and I'll make no fill, black stroke, and then switch it. That's going to allow me to make a black fill with no stroke. Hold down Option, and I believe that's Alt on a PC, and Shift at the same time, and just draw a tiny little circle. If I select off of this for a minute, that's going to be my purl stitch. Some people would do a negative sign, and you could do that by taking a line and just drawing it and then setting your stroke weight. Make that maybe 1. And you could have a purl stitch that was a horizontal line, whichever you prefer. Either one is pretty easy. The last step is to select both the dot and the box and center it using the Align dialog box. So there are 2 center options, and then Command G will group them. What's nice is because there's a fill in these boxes, I can drag them as I need them, which will come in handy later on. Next I want to make a yarn over, which is almost identical to making a purl stitch, but it's going to be a slightly larger circle, and it's not going to have the black fill that the previous one had. So I'm going to hold down Option and Shift, and I'll draw a slightly larger circle, and that's my yarn over. I can center and group those, and then Command G. And one thing I want to show you here is, even though I've grouped these, which if I use my regular arrow tool will select both items, so anything I do would apply to both, I can actually use my direct selection tool to select just any part of that circle, the inside circle, and I can now go over and change the stroke weight, and it will only impact the item that I had partially selected, and it actually impacts the whole thing. So if you draw something you realize, oh, I want to make the stroke weight different or make the fill different, you can do that easily by using the direct selection tool. Next we'll make some decreases. So I'm going to Option drag this again, that duplicates it. I'm going to draw another rectangle, and I'm not going to hold down Option, though you can if you like. I'm just going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to draw a tiny little box. I'm going to add the stroke weight that I want, and then I'm going to click the minus sign, and I can also get to this option under the pen tool. It's delete anchor point. So with the minus sign tool selected, I just click one corner, and I now have a right angle triangle that I can use for SSK. Come back up here, center, center, and group. And then if I Option drag this to duplicate it, I can go over to the reflect tool, and then I can just reflect it. and that will give me my knit two together. I can also make a no stitch box, and that's generally just a darkened box, either gray or black. And then there are times when you're going to have other stitches and you're going to have to make up your own symbols for them. There are a few that I use fairly regularly. One might be a make one, which is often indicated with an M. To do that, all you have to do is type the letter M, capital. You can pick the font you want. This one works fine for me. Make sure it's the size you want, and you can modify that up in the options here. So I could make this 14 point, or I can go down to 12 again, which I think 12 is absolutely fine. I can make it bold. And then if you plan to send this chart to another source, I highly recommend you convert your text to outline, at least in this case, so that the integrity of the look is maintained. If the person doesn't have the same font you have, then your letters or symbols or whatever you choose to use could get all wonky in the process. So by converting it to outlines, it's now an image instead of live text. And I can center it and group it. And this is a shape just like all the other shapes now. So that would be a make one. Another thing you might want to do is a twisted stitch, and I often indicate that with a circle. And I'm going to scale in a little bit so that you can see this a little bit better. What I'm going to do is click Shift C, and that's convert anchor point. This is also under the pen tool, this last option here. I'm going to click on this bottom, and instead of being a nice rounded point, it's now going to be an angled anchor point. And I can pull that down just a little bit. And then I can use my pen tool to draw on the little tails at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and, we learned about this before, option click and copy. That's going to give me a second little tail here, and then I can just nudge it into place. I can group these, scale it down to the size I want, add the stroke weight that I want it to be 1 like all the other ones, and then I can contain that in a box too. So as you can see, you can make pretty much any shape you like, and I now have a whole bunch of different symbols that I can use. If I go back, so now that we have all our shapes together, we can go back, snap to grid again, and we can start to build our chart. I'm going to go ahead and align these nice and neat so that I can use that area as a key later on. And those will just snap into place based on the outside box, which is one of the reasons why I put everything in a box. And then I just hold down Option and drag my items into place. And as I do that, it will build my chart grid. And then just continue in that manner. And if you want to reacquaint yourself with how to build the chart based on the colorwork tutorial, you can click the links in the sidebar. Hopefully that helps, and if you have any recommendations or suggestions for other people, please feel free to leave a comment, and I love to hear from you.